But first, the Dutch royal journalist Rick Evers, who has read the damning excerpt because he's seen it in the Dutch version. Let me talk to you, Rick, first of all. When you first saw what appeared in the Dutch version, what did you think?
Well, I wouldn't think I would have some big scoop, because I was thinking that everyone in the whole world would have the same copy, except it would be in English. So I wasn't aware that it was such a big thing.
How do you
Of course, it is a big thing that their names are in it, but
right.
Everyone would have the same copy, isn't it? Usually.
Right. Well, I couldn't work out in my rational head why you should know what those names were, but British people shouldn't. So that's why I've said them. And to repeat, I don't believe a word of these racism claims, never have done. I've seen no evidence to suggest they're true. I think it was an ugly smear. And now at least we can have a public debate about it and people can say what they really want to say about it. But from your perspective, how do you think these paragraphs appeared in the Dutch version if Omid Scobie, the author, insists, as he has done, that he had nothing to do with it, never put these names in writing, never supplied a draft with those names?
First of all, I want to say, after your track record, Piers, it would be very unimpressed if you didn't mention these names. So well done, because you're the first one, I think, on TV that's doing that.
To be honest with you, I don't understand why journalists wouldn't. I haven't understood why we haven't so far, because the moment a book is published and available to people on the streets of another country containing these names, I don't even know if these are the two names of the two people that Meghan Markle originally with Harry claimed made these comments. We don't know. But we do know they've appeared in the book, a version of the book, and it's Omid Scobie's book, and we do know that under oath Meghan Markle admitted that she conspired in his last book as one of his sources. So let's wait and see how this plays out. But again, just to come back, what do Dutch people in the media think has happened here?
Well, I don't think Dutch people really care about it, because it's the U.S. royal family in this case that is involved. Not even the British royal family, actually, because people don't believe it, I think. But on the other hand, how did it end up in the book? I think it is in the way Omid is describing it. It was not in the manuscript. What is the manuscript? Is it the final version that you hand in at your publisher? In that case, it was in an earlier version, and it got erased in all the other versions all over the world, except for that tiny little country, the Netherlands, that has been overlooked. Maybe someone overlooked the Netherlands to send us a memo, the publisher, or maybe the publisher forgot to do it. I don't know.
Well, it's very mysterious. Let me go to another seasoned author, Tom Bauer. You've written many books. Have you ever known a situation, Tom, where a version of your book has appeared in a foreign version containing paragraphs you knew nothing about that contained bombshell revelations?
It's impossible. And also, more to the point, he also complained that the French translations were wrong too. I mean, the problem with Scobie is everyone is getting it wrong what he wrote. But of course, he can't probably remember what he wrote himself because it's so full of fabrications.
Well, I'm not saying he's lying about having no involvement in this. I'm just saying generally he's a terrible liar.
He's a terrible liar. We know that from his own statement about the briefing from Jason Knauf, which Meghan gave him. We know he's a liar. And I think he's fabricated a lot in his book. And he lied when he said he didn't have Meghan's help in this book. Clearly, he was briefed by Meghan's people from California.
He says they share mutual friends, right? But those friends would not be allowed to cooperate with him without permission.
Exactly. It's exactly before. This is all. His book, again, is Meghan's voice. Why is she decided to launch another war, a battle against the royal family? That's for her to explain. But she hasn't dissociated herself from
Have you ever thought that there was any racial intent comments made?
No. I mean, the whole this is actually explained in my Meghan book very clearly. It was a very, very early on in Harry's relationship with Meghan. He goes for tea to Clarence's house. He's sitting there with Prince Charles then, and Camilla, and they eventually discover who he's dating and all the rest of it. And Camilla, very as a joke, just says, "I wonder what your baby will look like. Will he or she have ginger hair?" It's just the normal. And when that originally came out, it had nothing to do with racism, as Harry himself admits. It was all to do with the perennial problem. What will your baby look like if it comes from different parents?
I just thought it was incredibly disingenuous of Harry, after 2 years
Yes.
of feverish racism slurs.
He was, but the thing about Harry,
he then said, well, oh, we never meant to infer racism.
No, but the whole point is in the Opera interview that he comes onto the programme after Meghan has spoken and says, no, she's wrong. It all happened long before she was pregnant. It happened right at the beginning of our relationship. It was just a normal tea conversation.
Nearly 2 years before.
Exactly. And so Meghan had lied. I mean, there were 17 lies she uttered in the Opera interview. That was one of her lies. And that is the problem. He's now hoist by it. But the real problem is he's caused enormous damage. And Scobie...
Huge damage.
And Scobie, to get some money and all the rest, stirs it again and again and again. But this time, yet again, is definitely with Meghan's approval.
OK, Roy, look, you didn't know I was going to do the naming of these two people. I don't want to get you involved in that directly. You're a royal correspondent. But on the wider picture, this book is getting more and more attention. It's now front page news of many papers. It clearly has a lot of damaging revelations. It follows a familiar pattern from his first book. All the main royals are awful. Duke and Duchess of Sussex are angelic, and weren't they treated so badly? How significant is this book? Is it going to actually have any real effect, do you think?
Well, it's interesting you say it's full of damaging revelations and bombshells, because actually from what I have read so far, it's just full of Omid's own highly partisan views and opinions, rather than fact-based, damaging bombshell allegations that I think a lot of people thought were going to be unveiled with real, proper evidence behind them. And I have to say, I've been asked about the book a lot this week, and it's just felt quite predictable. And of course, it was always going to get lots of traction because it's Omid, it's the royals. But it just feels, once again, like Finding Freedom, a very one-sided partisan. The rest of the royal family are awful. Harry and Meghan smell of roses. And I think actually the British public and a lot of the wider public are able to sort of decide for themselves which camp they're in, how much they believe, how much they don't. I mean, you've talked about already this week the things that Omid has said about you that aren't true.
Yeah.
He's really not a fan of the Sunday Times coverage I've read, and he had a whinge and a moan about my William interview knocking off Trooping the Colour from the front page. We never put Trooping the Colour on the front page, and so on and so forth. So I think, is it going to be hugely damaging? I think it'll whip up a storm, predictably, to get publicity, and I feel that possibly something around these names could be to do with publicity. But I don't think it's going to have real lasting damage, because I don't think people are going to believe all his opinions.
Right, and they shouldn't, by the way, from my experience. But in terms of, I guess, the family relationships here, particularly Harry and his father, we were reading signs of potential rapprochement. Would they come to Sandringham? I got to say, I think I've got more chance of being at Sandringham than Meghan Markle pulling
that was my story. They'd like
festive
to.
crackers.
They'd like to.
Yeah, it was your story, yeah. But none of this is going to help, because there is this belief, which may or may not be true in the case of this book. I don't know, right? But we know in the first book, Meghan Markle said she had nothing to do with it, and then under oath had to admit she did. If it turns out the same has happened here, and she's authorised friends to help him and give him stuff, because let's face it, this exchange of letters between Charles and Meghan Markle, only one of them can have told people about that. And Charles is not the kind of guy that's going to be telling people about a letter like that, which makes me think it's her and her friends or somebody has gone to Scobie. We'll wait and see. But if that is the case, this is going to be very damaging to the ongoing trust issues between Charles and Harry.
Well, trust is the key issue, and I think that was something I touched on in that piece about them saying we wouldn't decline an invitation to spend time with the family. The problem is, as you just rightly said, imagine what a whole Christmas at Sandringham would produce in terms of potential future content. And I think looking at the phone call between Charles and Harry and Meghan around Charles' 70th birthday, it was briefed before it happened, and it was briefed after. And I think if you can't even have a private phone conversation that isn't briefed before or after...
I honestly wouldn't trust, if that was someone in my family, after what they've done, repeatedly, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
Trust is the issue, and that's not changing anytime soon.
Let's go to Kahindi Andrews, be waiting patiently here. Kahindi, we've talked a lot about race issues over the years, but specifically here, there is no doubt that when they went on Oprah Winfrey 2 years ago, they made a series of allegations directly inferring racism by senior members of the royal family, which they've never produced evidence for, and which 2 years later Harry said, oh, we didn't mean racism, we meant unconscious bias and so on. Do you not feel that that is incredibly damaging to people like you who constantly fight battles for racial equality, racial justice, try and fight proper battles about this. Is it not incredibly damaging to that when someone of their profile tries to pretend what they said to Oprah Winfrey was not what it was?
Well, no. I mean, I think the allegations when they came out, we all kind of believed it. It wasn't something that seems completely outrageous. Also, I'm not sure what evidence you could have. And actually, if you listen to the clips, they're clearly trying not to say the names because they know the names are going to cause this massive storm. But I think the bigger problem with the whole way this has been portrayed is Oprah's shocked, everybody's shocked. No black person I know was shocked that this came up in a conversation in the royal family. And the bigger problem here really is that actually it isn't about racist royals. It's about the royal family is racism. It is a symbol of white supremacy. That's the bigger problem.
Because
the way
they're
we
white.
Talk about this now is completely
because
ludicrous.
they're white.
No, not because they're white, but because they're white, because they are
Where is
almost
the evidence?
exclusively
Where is
white,
the evidence
because
of
they
them
are
being white supremacists?
The link back to colonialism. Why do we even the idea that a country like Britain, which is incredibly diverse, an empire which was more diverse, is led by this almost exclusively white family into the 21st century? I'm sorry, that is
So you're judging them by their skin
That's
colour.
the issue of racism.
So just to be clear, you're judging them by their skin colour, not the content of their characters.
No. I'm saying their skin colour is not an accident. It is not an accident that Meghan Markle
No, they're
is the
white.
first black person to
They
go
can't
into
help
the
being
family.
white.
It is not an
Kahindi.
accident that she's run out of the family.
Kahindi, they're white, you're
their
black,
whiteness is the
I'm
point.
white. We
It's
can't
not
help
acci-
our skin colour.
It's not about their skin colour. It's about what it represents. The idea that that King Charles is the king of my family's from Jamaica, which is 90% black people, and the king of the head of state of Jamaica is the King Charles. It's ludicrous. That is a ludicrous thing in the 21st century. But that is what I'm saying. Symbol of white supremacy.
Well,
That's
you're going to
what
have
the
a
problem
vote.
is. I couldn't care less if it was Kate.
Listen, countries like Jamaica will have votes, and they can
It's not
decide.
about having a vote. It's about the.
No, but
No, it's
the
about
point
the
is, you
history,
can.
it's about why
There
is
are
that. How can
countries
you defend
choosing.
it?
There are countries like Jamaica choosing whether they want to go independent. That's absolutely a democratic right. You don't have to have our monarch as the head of state.
The fact that's a choice. The fact that's a choice in the 21st century tells you there's a big problem.
But do you think anyone then, so anyone in the royal family, Kahindi, just to be clear, anyone in the royal family, as far as you're concerned, is a white supremacist simply because they're white and they're part of a royal family?
What I'm saying is the royal family, like the police or like universities where I work, they are institutions of white supremacy. It's not about the individuals. It's about what they do. It's about their role in the world. That's the real case. The royal family should be gone. It should be abolished. It shouldn't exist if we're talking about anti-racism. I really couldn't care less which royal said what, because that actually distracts.
What if
from
they
the
didn't
bigger
say it
issue
at all?
of why on earth we would accept
What
this?
if they didn't say it at all, but the whole world has been led for 2-3 years to believe that they did? What about that scenario?
Like I said, this doesn't, like for me, it really doesn't matter whether they said it or not.
Because you think they're all racist anyway, right?
It's not about individual people. So it's not they are all racist. They are in an institution which is racism, which is one of these primary symbols of racism.
You know, sometimes, Kahindi,
I think it is a bit surprising that Kate. I think.
I'm going to say sometimes, when your default position, which it always is, by the way, is that everyone's a white supremacist if they've got white skin colour until they can prove otherwise. It is your default position. And it is your default position.
Piers, you know it's not what I said.
That's always been your default position.
I said that the institution...
Any white people in any position of authority, power, anything, they're all white supremacists according to you. It does beg the question, why do you want to live in a country like this if they're all white supremacists?
Like I could go home back to Jamaica.
No,
but unfortunately,
I don't care.
The head of state is the king.
You can go,
He's the same problem. I can't even get away from it.
You can go where the hell you like. I'm just saying, why, honestly, why stay in a country you believe is led in every pillar of the establishment and society by white supremacists? Makes no sense to me.
Because the reality is that that's the world. I didn't choose the world. That is the world that I inhabit. And I would stress, I'm not saying that all white people are white supremacists. I actually think when we think about racism as individual racist, it's the worst way to think about it. Think about the systems, think about the institutions. And the royal family is exclusively white for a reason. It is the head of the so-called Commonwealth British Empire for a reason. It is a direct connection to the colonial history that this country loves so much. It is the premier symbol of white supremacy.
You know what? It's actually not exclusively white.
These comments.
It's not exclusively white because the Duchess
Almost
of Sussex.
exclusively. I said
the
almost
Duchess of
exclusively.
Sussex is not
I
white.
said almost exclusively.
What she did do was she entered the royal
exception
family.
that proves the rule.
She launched a grenade of racism allegations, and has ever since stayed silent about
she
those
barely did
and let
anything.
them run riot around the world. I mean, that to me,
She came into the royal family, and her blackness was so much of an affront
in its
that
way,
everybody lost their minds.
That, in its way, is a form of racism, actually, in my view, what she's done. But we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out now, because I've decided to name
Piers,
the two
are you really
people
accusing Meghan Markle
named
of
in the
racism?
Holland version of this book. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see whether Meghan Markle and Harry were involved with Scobie's book. Let's see what Scobie and his involvement in this offending paragraph and naming was. Let's just see how this all plays out. And let's give the members of the royal family that they besmirched collectively, let's give them the chance to properly respond. Because I don't believe a word of it. Anyway, Kahindi, it's always good to talk to you. Thank you very much.